Hey there, I'm Sully, and as always, welcome to the Gun Club. Alrighty, we're going live right now on both Rumble and YouTube, streaming to both channels. And I wanted to go through and do a quick update on a lot of the events transpiring out of the Lewiston, Maine event. Now, as you know, Lewiston, Maine, last Wednesday night, we had the tragic events that unfurled out at the spare time or just in time bowling alley, and subsequently at Chemengi's Bar and Grill. And we heard all about it, which led to the manhunt and everything else. There's been a lot of information come out, some good, some bad, few things that I'm finding just watching articles pop up and things like that that I wanted to highlight on, sort of key on just a little bit. I see people starting to file in. We've got a few watching us over on Rumble, a couple on the YouTube stream. I see Minnie is with us tonight. She's in the craft cave. Apparently, she's making Clemson Tiger tumblers to drink the booze that you need while watching them play this year. Yes, Minnie is a big Clemson fan, and while she does wonderful work on her tumblers, apparently her Tigers are also kind of tumbling this year. It's been a very rough year for her boys. Um, Historically, she spent many times coming over here to my little neck of the woods, my bar and grill, my big screen TV, so she could watch football without disturbing her husband because, well, I don't know if he can spell football, much less understand it. So, yes, she's making her wonderful tumblers tonight. She's the one who does all of our custom work like this. That's her over at Southern Sisters Crafted Creations. And she makes really cool tumblers for us. And, well, she's working on some Clemson ones tonight for her group. So that'll be nice. Um, this whole situation, it's a tragic event. And as we all know, after any tragedy, we have a lot of people, especially those very politically motivated, sometimes trying to make hay out of it, sometimes trying to use it to push an agenda. The within 24 to 48 hours of it on Twitter or X was just ridiculous. I got into more than my share of spats with people simply because I don't think it's a gun thing. And we're going to get more into that later on. But, there was a lot going on with this gentleman, and I've gone through a lot of it. And let's sort of recap and see what we're up to here. Now, I've filled in the timeline of events a little bit better. The first call to 911 was received at 6:56 or 18:56. They get a call from the spare time reporting there's someone there shooting up the place, or an active shooter. Now, 4 off-duty officers were nearby. They actually happened to be at a local shooting range very nearby and responded immediately directly to the scene, getting on scene less than 2 minutes after the original call. Now, I'll be honest with you, 4 officers in the door within 2 minutes of the original 911 call, that is right up there with miracle material. So we go through from there and we say, okay, that is not going to happen. Now, interestingly, those 4 officers who arrived on scene, the guy was not there. The bad guy had already left. The first official uniformed officer arrives on scene 2 minutes after them. Again, 4-minute response time. You've got your first uniform officer on the scene. Within the next 5 minutes, they've got 5 more on-duty units. Now, remember, this is a bowling alley. It's a very big building. It's a very large building. I'm sure at that point it was a very chaotic building. They're making entry. Of course, they're going to try to find the bad guy. There's no bullets going off. No one knows where the bad guy is. You're getting the very much he went that away. Again, you have 5 people see the same wreck. 5 people will tell you 5 different things happened. So we know that at that point, they're getting conflicting reports, where he is, what's going on. And as they're dealing with this, okay, 7:08. 911 call from 4.5 miles away at Chemengi's Bar and Grill. They've got an active shooter. Now, hindsight being 2020, we know it's the same guy. But did they at the time? No. Is it a second one? Is it a tag team event? Remember, if we think back, Eric Rudolph had people helping him when he was doing bad things. So a lot of times you don't know Which one is which? What are we going to? You've got a huge crime scene here. You've got 7 deceased on scene, and you've got a guy shooting up a place 4 miles up the road. They respond from there. Again, 4-minute in the door time, which is about all you're going to get. Again, that's the best you'll see in any place. They end up there with 7 deceased outside, inside the facility, 1 outside, 3 additional deceased at the hospital. The total event at both locations, plus those that died at the hospital, we end up with 18 deceased and 13 injured. I'm sure there were some minor injuries beyond that, but 13 official count. Okay. So as far as law enforcement's response to it, gold star. They did pretty much damn perfect. Best you're going to get. I'm sorry, but I know from having worked public safety, fire, EMS, and a very brief stint in law enforcement, to get multiple officers on scene within 4 minutes of a call, it doesn't get any better. It just doesn't. Unless you just happen to be across the street from the PD or across the street from the local Waffle House that we're all eating at Oh Dark 100, you're not going to get that kind of response time. So they did great. There's nothing more that the responding officers could have done to negate this at all. We have to look now at the way the shooter did it. He obviously had it planned out. He went from A to B very quickly. When you have officers get on scene within 2 minutes of the 911 call and he's already gone, and how many minutes later he's down the road. So moving very, very quickly, very, very much indicates a planned, orchestrated attack. Not trying to give him any cardboard cookies or gold stars or nothing, but from a responder point of view, from a tactical point of view, this begins forming our response into, okay, what are we dealing with? Is this just crazy, chaotic evil went off the deep end, or is this something that's very well orchestrated and timelined? Well, it's definitely looking like that. Suspect information comes out, 40-year-old male. I had put out his name previously when he was on the loose and put his picture up on the screen. Basically at that point, because he was still on the loose and we didn't know where he was. And at that point, the desire to not name him or give him any credit sort of got overridden by my desire to get him caught and put in jail and have bad things happen to him. Now it's dealt with. So, okay. He was in the Army Reserve since 2002. He was never full-time military. He had never had any combat tours. He, again, 20 years reserve time. There was an issue with mental health issue at his drill during the summer of 2023, at which time he spent 2 weeks in the hospital. Now, a lot of people have heard that much. Here's the deal. He did go to a facility for 2 weeks during that summer of 23. He went there totally voluntarily. So with the fact that he went there and checked in voluntarily and went voluntarily, that is why he did not get firearms taken away. And we're going to get into that whole situation a little bit further as we go through this. Now, on Thursday night, law enforcement raided the house. They actually did a very extensive surround, called him out for some time on the PAs. Nothing. Didn't know if he's there or not. And then they raided the house. They did find a note there. The note wasn't necessarily a manifesto or a suicide note. It's been described by law enforcement as basically information for his family in the anticipation that he was no longer alive. Here's where my life insurance is. Here's where my will is, that type of thing. Here's the information for the bank account. Here's the password for my email. So definitely anticipated, or at least in his mind as writing it, and we're dealing with that, it definitely gave the appearance that he probably knew he wasn't coming home. Now, did they know he wasn't coming home? No. By about 7:45 Friday night, he is found at a recycling center about 48 hours after the situation started. And he was found in an unlocked trailer at a recycling product center that he had worked at. The trailer was out in their back lot. The back of it was unlocked. He was up in there. And he had died of a self-inflicted GSW. There were multiple firearms found with the body. Now, along the way, if you remember back on when it cut loose Wednesday night, a few hours after he had fled from the scene at the second shooting at Shemingi's. They have the Subaru out back. The description goes out everywhere. Then that vehicle gets found. It's at a boat ramp. Is he in the woods? Is he on a boat? Did he steal another vehicle or have something waiting there from the boat ramp? We don't know. And what are we going to do? Well, we'll work out from there, try to figure it out, sort it all out. Law enforcement at this point, the active shooting is done. There's no rounds flying, there's no guns going off. And at this point, they had to slow down a lot. And the reason they had to slow down a lot is we have a fairly well armed, fairly well trained, or at least planned attacker. If he has unlimited time to plan, where are booby traps? Again, when they did the raid on his house on Thursday night, I know a lot of people in the Twitter sphere were out there joking about how the cops spent an hour talking to an empty house on the Bullhorn, and how it was the Keystone cops and everything else. No. Wrong. Going in on a live breach is about one of the highest risk things you do, not only for us, but the suspect as well. If you're going to be doing the live breach, you want to do everything you can to avoid it. And number two, give him a chance to come out. It is 1,000,000% safer for the suspect to either come out with a weapon and get neutralized in the front yard with officers behind a position of cover and concealment, as opposed to the officers making entry into his territory. Is he laying in wait? Does he have booby traps? What does he have in there? Poison gas, explosives, all of the above, some of the above. We don't know what's in there. We don't know what's going on in there. So they're going to very much take their damn time, plan it out, because as long as he is within those four walls of that house, if he is there, he's not doing anything to anyone else. We've got all the time and resources in the world on the outside. And again, this is taking a very defensive posture, not only for the safety of the officers involved, but if you've got hostages in there, if you've got other people in there, we don't know. I'm pretty sure they probably went around the area. If they had air units, helicopter units, possibly FLIR, different things like that, trying to look and see how much information they can get about the layout of the house. We've got all the time in the world, because we'll always have more information than what we have now, and we'll always have more resources than what we have now. As opposed to, if he's had 6 months to plan this, what does he have? His resources aren't getting any better. His mentality isn't getting any better. He may be getting tired. So again, there's a lot of people saying, oh, well, why'd the cops take so long? Why didn't they just go kick in the door? Well, he wasn't there, and we know that now. It's really nice. Hindsight's 20/20 vision. But what if he had been in there? What if he had been in there with a hostage or someone else in there? So they're going to try to get as much intel, as much knowledge as we can before you make that breach. Now, it turned out he wasn't there. They made the breach. Life was good. They did find the note and work from there. They find him the next night in the recycling center. By that point, he's in the back of a trailer. He's not causing anyone any problems. One firearm was found in the vehicle that was left at the boat ramp. That was the AR platform chambered in 308. And again, coming back to some of the stuff again, trying to dispel the myths of the Twitter sphere, which a lot of people the night it happened when they heard it was an AR platform rifle, the first thing you heard is, oh, 223 rifles aren't made for hunting. They're made for humans. And 223 rifles, we need to get rid of this 223 rifles. Well, it wasn't even a 223, it was a 308, which is typically a larger game hunting and game hunting ground, possibly not on that platform, but 308 is a common hunting ground. And that's one reason why, sadly, it was very effective at what he was doing. It's made to hunt large game, and he did that quite well. There were 2 firearms found with the body. And again, the question, why does he still have firearms? He went to get help voluntarily. And so there was nothing ever involuntary about it. And so that never triggered anything to remove firearms. Imagine that. Now, again, the weapon is an air platform rifle, two other weapons found with the body. Now, the suspect, per law enforcement, has multiple firearms. Some were recent purchases within the last 10 or so days, others were many, many years old. Now, the interesting thing was there was a notification made by the military to his local sheriff's department back in September, about a month ago. And there was a question about, his mental health, his mental well being. Well, the reserve unit tipped the local sheriff's department to it. They sent people out there to the house to talk to him, do a welfare check. He wasn't there. They're unable to locate him anywhere. They put out a statewide notification. Basically, attempt to locate him. If you find him, let someone know. There was no manhunt for him then. There was no great worry then. Now, hindsight's 2020. Why didn't they do more? Why didn't they look more? Knowing what we know now back then would have been kind of helpful for them. But the officers who did this, they did their due diligence at the time. And when it was asked, well, how this could possibly slip through the cracks, the officers pointed out in the typical weekend, there may be 20 to 25 of these emergency statewide notifications come out. So if you're a local town PD in Maine and you're getting 20 notifications a week, 25 notifications every weekend in a 2-3 day period, things are going to fall through the cracks. It's going to happen. Could they have possibly done more? Yes. But I'm right now willing to bet that there is not anyone who Monday morning or Tuesday morning or even Wednesday morning of last week would have said that, oh, yeah, this guy's going to go do this tonight. Yeah, there is a certain normalcy bias we have in our lives. The normalcy bias is very simple. We expect things are going to be pretty much normal the way they always have. Now, when we say that, the normalcy bias comes in with, it's not going to happen here. It's not going to happen to me. This is a small town up in Maine. That's not going to happen here. This guy has lived there for years. His family has lived there for years. I'm, sure, no one has come right out and said he was some awful, mean person. He's got no great big prison record or record of violence or anything else. I'm pretty sure in small town America, 2 or 3 people probably knew this guy, and no one would have ever believed he would do it. Now, that's the important side of if you see something, say something, because sometimes, our normalcy bias can cause us to not believe what we're seeing, but it's also in that whole wonderful side of, there's a million small towns that it didn't happen in. There's a million small town police officers that it didn't happen to. They went out, they did what they could, looked for him, couldn't find anything else, so they went on their way. They put out the bulletin. No one happens to run across him. Were they actually hunting and searching for him? No. But it wasn't like it was a missing person or a missing kid or a missing elderly person or there was a wanted poster. At that point, it's not like he'd even committed any crime. He was acting erratically. I mean, if we had the police hunting down everybody who ever acted erratically, well, we don't have enough police. We'll say that. So it did slip through the cracks to an extent. They handled it, they said, consistently with the way they'd handle anything else. And when they talked to, again, other small towns in the area, they were the ones who cited 20, 25 alerts a weekend. If it's in their area, they'll look at it. So, may have been a voice that didn't get heard and a lot of noise. Beyond that, the fact that he had been voluntarily hospitalized. Why didn't that remove his firearms? Well, simplest version is most laws require that it be involuntary. And why the difference? Well, think about it. The last thing you want to do is discourage someone from voluntarily getting help if they're having issues. Imagine if they said to anybody, oh, by the way, if you actually go and check into a hospital or say you're getting depressed or overwhelmed or there's stuff going on in your life, and we're going to, come and take away all your guns, what's that going to do? That's going to get people to not seek help. That's a really, really good way to make going to get help taboo. Make going get If so, you're saying if I go and talk to a shrink, I'm now going to be under some federal watch list and under investigation and all this stuff, and I'm going to lose all my hunting stuff. Well, guess what? No better way to get people to not get help. We want to encourage them to get help voluntarily, and he did try to go get help voluntarily. So, as far as his personal life, he does have an ex-wife and 2 kids. She filed for divorce in 2020. They had been married for some time. The divorce was final in 2021, and she did move out of the area with the kids. So 2020, 2021, middle of the pandemic, he's sitting alone in the house, and imagine that he's hearing voices and having little episodes of paranoia. The episode with the Army Reserve Unit in 2023, he was saying that he thought people in his unit were talking about him. He was hearing things that they were saying about him that they weren't saying. And so that was okay. It wasn't, I'm going to murder a bunch of people. It wasn't, I want to blow up the base. It was, well, I heard you call me such and such. And the guy said, I never called you that. And 2 or 3 other people said he didn't. And so, well, most dangerous thing you do is argue with someone who's crazy and tell them that they're crazy. So that's kind of a little bit of behind the scenes. And again, the media is like, well, he was in a mental hospital, so we should have taken all his guns. Not if you voluntarily go. Well, it took law enforcement. I've heard a couple people, well, it took law enforcement so long to get there. Another one I've heard, and this is really a crazy one. Where was the good guy with a gun? I on this channel, a lot of times on the streams, I'll file it off and I'll close it out with a good guy or good girl with a gun. I'll show that just because this kind of stuff is what makes all the national news media, it doesn't mean that this is the majority of gun uses. We go back to that CDC statistic from 2019, 500,000 to 2.5 million defensive gun uses per year. 500,000 to 2.5 million lives saved, people saved, families saved a year. Man, we don't need to take those off the street. Sounds like it's doing a lot of work. Okay. Well, where was the good guy with a gun in this? Unfortunately, and again, not throwing rocks, the bowling alley was a gun-free zone. So again, for what it's worth, well, I respect the owner's right to make that decision. Unfortunately, him making that decision led to the fact that nobody there, so there was no good guy with a gun. It is what it is, folks. Also, the bar and grill in Maine, you're not allowed to carry if you have any alcohol in your blood. It's not that you've got to be under a 0.05 or 0.08 or what it is like some states where they'll give you a little grace. No. Under the influence of any intoxicating substance, no carry, no gun in possession. But on the other side, Maine is a shall issue state. It's a constitutional carry for 21 and up, permitted carry 18 and up. And when people want to say all this, that, and the other about, oh my God, you're letting 18-year-olds carry, it was the 40-year-old we had the trouble with. When we want to talk about how to fix this, and I'm going to go real quick. First of all, could mental health stuff have done better? Yes, if there was more follow-up on the mental health issues. And I think that's where, we need somebody in a mental health professional capacity, not in a law enforcement capacity. Cops are not mental health people, and mental health people are not cops. I'm sorry, but if somebody is kicking in your door trying to rob you or hunting you down with a knife or breaking into your store, you're not going to want a counselor to talk to them. You want a sworn law enforcement officer to engage with them. It is a totally different skill set. Now, you can have some law enforcement officers trained as negotiators and, mental health and everything else, but it is not their first doing. It is not their primary. They're not the starting quarterback. They're like the third string backup off the bench, doesn't belong there. He's going to do the best he can for the team, but it's not his strength. There's a reason why some people go and get psychology degrees and some people go get criminal justice or, other degrees. So that's definitely a problem. I can see that. We could do better on the mental health side. And if we track that back with the history of other incidents, I think that'll be good. Now, the assault rifle discussion. It was an AR platform rifle. Why are all these ARs used? Well, they're the most common rifle in the country. I hate to say it, if red cars are the most common color of car sold, guess what? There'll be a lot of wrecks involving red cars. If, blue cars become the most popular color of car sold, 10 blue cars for every one of any other color, you'll see a lot of blue cars getting in wrecks. But last year it was red cars. What's the difference? It's the most common thing out there, so it will be there a lot. The extended magazine ban. So, we've got senator out in Colorado who's all gung-ho about magazine bans right now. They've got a big legal case going on trying to do magazine capacity limits. And the thing is, multiple witnesses who were there, preliminary witness statements have said 8 to 10 shots fired in rapid succession and he left. 8 to 10 shots fired in rapid succession and he left. So was he using some big super capacity drum magazine? No. Would outlawing those work? Probably not. If we take the AR completely out of his hands, he had how many other weapons? So again, would that have worked? No. If we look at mental health, maybe that could have helped. If we look at bump stocks or pistol braces, well, none of them were involved in this. And I'm going through all this really to make the point of I want the people who are trying to stop this to effectively stop it. If, I drop this cup and it breaks, or I drop this cup on my phone and it breaks, I'm not going to blame the phone for sitting there. I'm blame me for dropping the cup. It's not going to blame the desk for being there. We have to deal with the problem where it exists. Now, I've been doing a lot of research, and we're going to be doing a couple of series on some of these active shooters and how we can address them. There are people out there. John Lott does amazing work through the Crime Prevention Research Institute. Michael Miller through USCCA. Tom Grieve has done a bunch of stuff. He also does USCCA. He's an attorney, former state prosecutor. If we want to fix these problems, let's get people who are intelligent to look at these and approach them and dissect them. What would have fixed this? Everything right now, and I've looked at a bunch of the ATF cases, there is not one of the ATF laws, had it gone through, that would have immediately fixed this. It wasn't a bump stock. It wasn't a force reset trigger. It wasn't a pistol brace. But yet they're spending hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars fighting to ban those in court when it wouldn't have done any good. I bring it up because if we're going to stop these, we need to focus on it intelligently, and we can. As a firearms owner, as a member of the public, I want to stop these. Believe me, if I never had to cover another mass shooting event again, I'd love it. But the bottom line is we can't go out there and say, oh, we'll ban the gun. Because if we're going to do that, that's fine. We have one big problem, though. Then we've got to ban cars the next time someone gets in a bad DUI wreck. Then we've got to ban aircraft the next time someone flies one and gets in a plane crash. Pretty soon we're going to have to ban knitting needles because someone stabbed one with someone. Honestly, it is what it is. We're going to ban swimming pools and backyards when the next kid drowns. If we're going to go out there and do crazy things, knee-jerk reaction, because if it saves just one life, we'll never stop this. We'll never stop the violence. So let's focus. Let's do something right. Do it positive. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. Put them in the comments. I do follow up on these. If you would be so kind, just give me a thumbs up if you enjoy what we're doing. Again, I know it was kind of a dark stream tonight, definitely on Monday of a night. I decided to do it tonight instead of Halloween. Figured nobody wanted this blown up in the middle of their Halloween. And, of course, I've got to come back with my favorite laugh of the weekend. And we're going to come back to my lighthearted check-in with our dear leader.
Who in God's name needs a weapon with 100 rounds in a chamber?
I don't know. Anyone find that gun with 100 rounds in the chamber yet? Because, might be kind of fun. Add to my collection. All righty. Folks, y'all have a good one. Be smart, be safe. Hope you have a wonderful Halloween. Enjoy your trick-or-treating, trick-or-trunking, or whatever else you're doing. And we will see you back here on Thursday night, where we'll dig in a little bit more. Y'all have fun. Bye.